our topic for this month, and in fact, which will also carry forward for the next month, is on the 8 aspects of God. Last week, we had touched on the topic of love, and this week is on the topic of bliss. And it's honestly one of my favorite topics. And of course, we know the place, the way we are connected is through Ananda Sangha, fellowship in bliss, in joy, in divine joy. Interestingly, once someone asked Swami Kriyananda why did he name Ananda as Ananda? An interesting question to ask. And Swamiji replied, because God is Satchit Ananda, and I guess because Satchit Ananda is too long, so he just called it Ananda. So we will tune into this aspect, and more importantly, probably I think what we will do is make it a little experiential and more in terms of how we can apply and tune into this bliss in our lives. So I think without much ado, let's go with the first thing first, which Swamiji would do often and in fact almost always in his public talks, which is start with music. And this is a very important way to tune into bliss. And I would like to talk more about it, but why not we first get into the experience part and then we can get into a little bit of theory. This song is There's Joy in the Heavens, and the words will be posted in your chat. So it's not listening, but we'll also try to sing with Swamiji in this recording. And let's try to tune into our consciousness as it is now and afterwards, after we hear to this piece of music. So There's Joy in the Heavens by Swamiji.
There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. Leave home in the sunshine, dance through a meadow, or sit by a stream and just be. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. Men hunger for freedom, but don't see their dungeon is only the thought that they're bound. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. There's joy all around us, why wait till tomorrow? We've only this moment to live. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air.
We could just meditate on the song, but I think I'll just keep going and you can perhaps tune into this song some other time. But every song which Swami Kriyananda ji wrote, you can tune into this divine quality of bliss behind it. And when I came first to Ananda, these were my three main things which almost blew my mind. And I felt this deep bliss. One was, of course, this beautiful music which we just heard. The second was the meditation, the techniques which were given to all of us. And the third was the people around me. And I will try to share or keep my sharing to these 3 points essentially. If it goes a little off track, please forgive me. But coming to music, it's very good to listen to music, and Swami Kriyananda ji often encouraged people to listen, and not only just listen, but to hear his music. There's a friend of mine, he said that, like when he was new to Ananda, he tried tuning into Swamiji's music and it was beautiful, but he still had, his old playlist on his phone, let's just say. And he was sitting in his office and he was working while he was listening to his old playlist. And slowly, he was perfectly happy that morning when he woke up, but slowly he felt his consciousness just going duller and duller and duller. And he said, "Oh my God, why am I feeling so heavy?" And then he said, "Let me just listen to something of Swamiji." And he played a piece of Swamiji's music called The Canticle of Creature. And this is, of course, inspired by St. Francis, and it's in Italian. And my friend doesn't understand any Italian. And he said, somehow just listening to the voice of Swami Kriyananda, somehow just listening to that music, he felt so uplifted, so joyful, so blissful. Most of the people whom I see, I'm sure you know, when I say bliss or joy, I don't mean to say the bliss which is attached to things or circumstances or situations. Bliss meaning the inner bliss of God, which we can feel in our lives as we walk on this path, as we meditate, as we sing these songs, and as we do whatever we do, as we move forward on the path. That is the kind of bliss. Uh, or I might say the bliss which I was talking to a friend of mine some time back, and he said, my hand broke, and I'm so happy because it gave me all the time to meditate more and to read all the books of Swamiji and to listen to all these recordings on YouTube of the path. Not exactly, but I think it's a good direction. We speak about being even minded and cheerful at all times, which I would like to speak more about later on. But again, I would like to encourage you to tune into the music and also to sing them, not just hear them if possible. Now, coming to the part of people which I wanted to share about was sometimes it can be hard for us to uplift our spirits on our own. And there are many aspects of the divine, the eight aspects which Yogananda ji gave us. And there are many, many tools and techniques to tune into each one, and all of us resonate to the aspect of the divine which we are more feel more comfortable with more close with, like Yogananda ji said, and this he said actually in Sister Gyanamata after she had passed away. So at her funeral service, he said, and this article Swami Kriyananda wrote, it's called Bliss Avatar. So this is one line from there. At Sister Gyanamata's funeral, Master said, Sister got there, meaning attained liberation in God through wisdom. I myself got there through bliss. And then Swamiji goes on to write, on at least three occasions, I was with the monks when he gave them an important piece of advice. I was alone with him on one other occasion when he said the same thing to me personally. And these are Master's words, Yoganandaji's words. He said, it is better to seek God primarily for bliss and only secondarily for his love. For in love, there is the possibility that one's feeling may become too personal rather than expansive outwardly to infinity. So it's a very important advice. And of course, we first hear that Sister Gyanamata, she got there through wisdom. Yogananda ji got there through love. And all of us tune in to divine, or we get there in our own unique way. Even if it's wisdom, it's not like everyone who gets through wisdom is the exact same way. Or if it's bliss, it's just bliss. Master called it ever new bliss. So it's not just that same boring bliss. It's different for everyone, And this is something which I found when I was starting with the word of people, which really inspired me when I came to Ananda. Was people were so joyful, and I found that at sometimes if I found my spirits not if I was not able to lift my spirits on my own, satsang was the most effective tool I found for myself. And it would be easily with someone, if you feel that you need joy or something, tune into someone or connect with a guru bhai of yours who manifests that quality more. If you're trying to tune into the quality of power, look for someone who exhibits that quality of energy and power. And similarly for all other qualities, but specifically for this time, because today's topic is on bliss, you can tune into those people, or even talk to them, or serve with them, or tune into the recordings of various acharyas through whom you feel bliss. It is very important. We cannot every time lift our own spirits, and if it is difficult, might as well get some help. Of course, the ultimate help comes from the guru, but sometimes it can be a bit too theoretical for some people. If you're not able to feel that inward presence, it's just going to be, yes, please give me bliss, I know you are there. While it's a little theoretical, might as well take one practical step, and then through them maybe we can feel the guru much more closer and much more deeper. There's a lot of merit, I feel. I mean, I'm here talking about an avatar's words and telling there's a lot of merit in what he said, but I've felt this very deeply in my life, that when I was trying to tune in too deeply to the divine quality as love, it had a tendency of going downward or sometimes outward. And having bliss, or tuning into bliss, has been much more effective for me, or much more easy for me, I might say, for that very reason. And then again, about people, the thing which inspired me when I came to Ananda was just to see that it wasn't just in the good times when they were happy, when they were joyful, but even when it was difficult. And as we all know, Paramhans Yogananda ji said, be even minded and cheerful at all times. Somehow, this word all times, is very baffling. Yeah, I can be an even minded and cheerful, maybe sometimes, maybe most of the times, but all times, like seriously. And we can beat ourselves up if we are not cheerful, or if we are not even minded. But it's nice to look at it in terms of direction. Which direction are we going towards? Am I even minded and cheerful more times than I was before? Am I getting more even minded when a sudden situation comes up on me? Is my reaction time getting lesser and lesser, instead of thinking of it in terms of an absolute, that, oh, I lost it, I'm good for nothing, and then beating ourselves up for literally nothing. Again, about this thing of being even minded and cheerful, when I was absolutely new at Ananda, I was almost brand new, it had been hardly a few months. And this movie, we've all heard about the movie Finding Happiness, it was releasing. And I was very excited. I wanted to watch this movie. I went with a lot of Ananda people to the theater where the movie was going to be released. And somehow we were waiting for the movie to start, and for the theater people to call us inside. But we were just, if the show was, let's say, at 11:15, and we were just not being invited, and it was taking time over and over. And I thought, what's happening? And everyone was curious. And then it so happened that the theater people, the movie people, they had somehow goofed up, and they weren't able to open the file of Finding Happiness on the big screen. They were just not able to do it. And I was so new, and I was still, seeing how these people react. I thought, let's see how these people react now. Are they going to be even minded and cheerful? Because I've seen them even minded and cheerful at some of the times. This would kind of qualify if they can be even minded and cheerful. So just looking around at people, and I was so impressed. Instead of saying, like, this is your fault, how dare you, didn't you know the movie is releasing, and to take care of these things and do a test, they were like, how can we help you? Oh, are you not able to do it? Can we try this way? Can we try that way? They tried everything. Nothing had worked with the movie people. And then finally, one of the acharyas, he said, I have a DVD of the movie in my house. Can I bring the DVD, and will you play it on your projector? So literally, all of us who came for watching this movie, we saw on the big screen on VLC media player, the Finding Happiness movie, which was being played through a DVD player. And I said, wow, yeah. And when we see these examples in life, when we tune into such people, it's helpful to tune into that joy, which is really unconditional. And then the last point, meditation, and I'm almost overshooting my time. I would like to pass it on to Ramesh. Meditate with joy. Don't just meditate for joy. We'll find that when we meditate with joy, we are meeting joy halfway. And this is something which Paramhans Yogananda ji said in his metaphysical meditations. And with this reading, I'll pass it on to Ramesh. Uh, it's a reading on find God and joy. I'll not read the whole thing, but he writes, no matter what causes it, meaning no matter what causes that joy, whenever a little bubble of joy appears in your invisible sea of consciousness, take hold of it and keep expanding on it. Meditate on it, and it will grow larger. Watch not the limitations of the little bubble of your joy, but keep expanding it until it grows bigger and bigger. With that, I would like to pass on to Brahmachari Ramesh, and who will share with us in a blissful way about more bliss.
Thank you, Vineet. So, before I begin, with reference to what Vineet said about Master telling monks about trying to tune into God as bliss, Brahmachari Jamal referred in the previous class also that that advice was specifically for men, that he recommended men to tune into bliss more and women to tune into the aspect of love just because of how their natures are usually. But eventually, all distinctions disappear in God. So, but it's funny, Bliss, because Bliss, as Brahmachari Vinit said, it's his favorite way to connect to God. Personally, Bliss doesn't come easily to me, but I experience it in some ways. Two primary ways through which I experience divine bliss are through divine grace and through the practice of Kriya Yoga. Before I go into it, I wanted to share a little story since Vinit also mentioned the Canticle of Creatures. So, this is a story of Saint Francis. So, Swamiji also often used to share it with people, and I will also share it. So, in this story, Saint Francis and his close companion, Brother Leo, were walking in the winter through snowstorm, trying to reach a monastery before it got late. Saint Francis called ahead to Brother Leo, do you know the nature of true joy? Leo replied, no, please instruct me. Francis said, if we come to this monastery and the monks receive us with open arms, that isn't true joy. If they bring us in from the cold and snow and warm us by the fireplace, that isn't true joy. And if they give us good food to eat and nice beds to sleep in, that is not joy. Then he goes on, but if we come here, knock on the door, they open it and say, get out, you reprobates. Reprobate means a person in those times who is sinner. Get out, you reprobates, and they throw us into a snowdrift and refuse us entry, or love, or comfort, or food. Note well, brother Leo, that is true joy. Now, here is the interesting thing. Saint Francis isn't telling that being kicked out or suffering is true joy. He's telling, in spite of all of those things, if you can feel joy within, that is true joy. Because that is what we all want to experience too. The difference between bliss and pleasure is that pleasure or happiness has conditions to it. If that happens or this happens, we experience some uh, desire fulfilled and we feel happy. But once it goes away, it may not be there. But true joy, bliss, is unconditioned. It transcends suffering, which is what Saint Francis was referring to. And that is why meditation is one of the good ways. Vinith also said meditation was one of the three things through which he also experienced divine joy, which is bliss. Particularly the practice of Kriya Yoga. If someone of you have not yet learned the technique, it's a wonderful technique, and the particular fruit through which you experience through Kriya Yoga which you experience is ever new joy. Sri Yukteswarji said that Kriya Yoga practice gives you a twofold proof of the existence of God. One, through experiencing Him as ever new joy, Satchitanandam. And second, when you ask in that divine meditation experience any question to God, you get the answer to that question. So, ever new joy is God. Even when Master asked him, where is God? To Sri Yukteswarji, he said, ever new joy is God. So, that experience within And when I say within, I'm pointing my finger. It wasn't coming in the camera. It is coming in the heart center. So that is one of the practical ways you can tune into the aspect of God. That when you try to feel it from your heart center, which is the receiving station. And you project it from here, ask God to give you that experience through meditation, through concentration, and you receive it here. When you do that, without any dual mind going up and down, if you feel it there, you will experience it. I also wanted to share why Kriya Yoga works for helping us experience divine joy and how we can then take that principle and use it all the time. What Kriya Yoga does is it takes all our energies going into the senses, reverses those directions, and brings it into the river of self realization, which is our astral spine. When you do that, your energy is not being wasted in the senses, in false joy, pleasures, and when the direction is reversed, that entire energy goes into the spine and goes up. And when that happens, the fruit is true divine joy because you are going away from dual opposites and coming back to your true center. We don't experience bliss, we manifest bliss. Or any of the eight aspects, we don't really get it from somewhere outside. It is already within us, and we are just bringing it out by removing all the distractions, which is what we are trying to do, even with divine joy. So, since it is not easy for me to divine joy, so today there was a certain class going on, and I was thinking, okay, Swami Kriyananda says to get joy, you have to be joyful. To get peace, you have to be peaceful. Let's try it out. So, during meditation, I said, okay, let's be joyful to begin with, without actually trying to receive, because we manifest it, right? So I tried it and I saw, well, it is coming in. I am experiencing divine joy, not through any effort of mine, just by expecting joy to be there because it is our true nature. So do that and you will also experience. Paramahansa Yogananda ji said to be a smile millionaire. Why did he say that? Because he also wanted us to manifest bliss. And being a smile millionaire is the first step towards convincing ourselves that bliss exists. That you take your hand and smile. Because if you don't do that, if you become very serious, you are pushing joy away. We have to invite it in for it to be experienced, manifested. And to not push it away, we have to invite it in, and smiling is one of the ways to do that. Uh, he said, Yogananda ji, that evil is the absence of true joy. So anything which is evil or which is negative or which is taking us away from joy, if we avoid those things, joy again comes to us. Yamaniyamas. Now, why am I bringing those things here? Because even when you meditate and experience divine joy, sometimes it goes away once you come out of meditation and get involved in your mundane things of the world. The joy trance, as Vinit was saying, started going down, down, down. But if you practice yama niyamas, which are the attitudes which take us to our true self, when we practice those attitudes, we are again manifesting our true consciousness of ever new joy. And they are beneficial too, so why not do them? Another thing, this was from How to Be Happy All the Time book. Yoganandaji says, when we are in tune with divine will, when we are in harmony with divine will and act according to that will, it gives us divine joy because we are flowing with God's will. But when we are not able to do that, we become unhappy. We cannot experience divine joy when we are going away from God's will. So, again, in whatever you do, try to tune in deeply to what God wants. It's not always easy. It requires deep meditation, which is where I'm going at. That deep meditation is the surest way to experience divine joy, and music too, because it comes from deep meditation to deep music. Another thing I would like to share was, yes, Vineet also shared about magnetism, like being with people who express divine bliss, because that is the principle of magnetism. Another thing which I like to do to tune into divine joy is humor. because humor helps us. It's not directly a channel to divine bliss, it's a little unconventional. But what it does is, when you are serious all the time, uh, Swami Kriyananda, I'm not exactly saying his words, but he said, serious renunciation is a grim business. And when you do that, you kind of start losing the lightness or depth of joy which you can experience when you try to be outwardly very serious. So, what humor does is it lightens the seriousness. Discipline is important in the spiritual path. Seriousness is not always necessary. So one of the masters said that do not take yourself too much seriously. So, it is very important. And when you use humor, what it does is it lightens the seriousness, and when it lightens the seriousness, it is a door through which you can invite divine bliss to come. When you remove the conditions from humor, it is joy in its essence. So these are few of the things. So with respect to humor, if you read the autobiography of a yogi, there are several places there where you can find the masters being humorous. One of them being the cauliflower robbery. So do reread it again. It's a humorous story with a lesson in there. Another thing which I like a lot to tune into bliss is reading and tuning into the poem Samadhi, because Samadhi is where you experience bliss in its finest state. So read the poem again and again. Yogananda ji said you should memorize it and try to memorize it. It reminds us of that state of divine joy, what it looks like, what it feels like. So a few lines of that poem I will repeat, which can indicate the direction to divine joy. Smoldering joy, oft puffed by meditation, blinding my tearful eyes, burst into immortal flames of bliss. It started as smoldering joy and burst into immortal flames of bliss, consumed my tears, my frame, my all. Enjoyable beyond imagination of expectancy, samadhi bliss. Another line is, from joy I came, for joy I live, in sacred joy I melt. The last one is also good. A tiny bubble of laughter, I am become the sea of mirth itself. It's interesting how Yoganandaji uses the words a bubble of laughter and the sea of mirth itself. That first we experience divine joy as a bubble of laughter, and then as you go deeper and deeper and deeper, the bubble bursts and becomes one with the sea of bliss, which is also, once we start feeling it here at the center, divine bliss as a bubble, and you expand it and you burst the bubble and let it expand to infinity. So, coming back to humor, because I want to end it on a lighter note, I will mention a story of Saint Bernadette, the one from France who had visions of Divine Mother. So, she in her last years was very ill and mostly bedridden with different illnesses, but she never lost her sense of humor. So, one day a superior went to see Bernadette in the infirmary, asked her, "What are you doing there in the bed, what are you doing there in bed, you lazy little thing?" Bernadette replied, "Why, my dear mother, I am doing my job, which is being ill." So the saints are using humor as a way to go to divine joy, preceded by divine calmness. So with that, we will end today's session. Thank you everyone for being with us. Satsang is surest way to experience divine bliss, and let us practice these things. Om.